Good evening or good morning, wherever you guys are in the world. I'm Samantha Joseph, and I'm moderating the 6th Google Hangout session of the 3rd annual fall edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. So through the Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 11 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards the Celebrity Male Role Model campaign. The Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise 1 million for the cause to end violence against women. We'll also be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project at www.thepixelproject.net. So today we have a very special guest. So please join me in welcoming Martha Wells. Martha is the author of over a dozen science fiction and fantasy novels, including the Books of Raksura series, Star Wars Razor's Edge, and the Nebula-nominated The Death of the Necromancer. As well as short stories, non-fiction, and YA fantasy. So her books have been published in 7 languages. Martha has donated 3 goodie bundles comprising a signed and personalized first edition hardcover of her latest novel, The Edge of Worlds, plus a custom blended tea called Indigo Cloud to go with it. And they've all been snapped up by several of Martha's fans already, and they've made generous donations. So we'd like to give a big thank you to Brandy Couch, Larissa Williams, and Sue Nowakowski. But there are still plenty more goodies currently and soon to be released on our Read for Pixels Fall 2016 Indiegogo fundraiser. So please give generously. All funds go toward the Pixel Project Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign to help end violence against women. So here is Martha. Hello, Martha.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. So Martha's going to be doing a reading from the Stories of Raksura, Volume 1, The Tale of Indigo and Cloud. So take it away, Martha.
Oh, okay, here's, this is the book, and I'm going to be reading the first bit of The Tale of Indigo and Cloud. Cerise was on her way back from the colony's lower levels and a visit to the nurseries when Streak stopped her. They were at the waterfall pool in the greeting hall, the heart of the colony tree, until we're guaranteed an audience. "Are you busy?" Streak demanded. It wasn't the best way to speak to the reigning queen, but Streak was the chief of the Albora soldiers caste and had been old since Cerise was a fledgling. So Cerise said, "No, I'm about to go to my bower where I'll lounge around in idle dissipation. What do you want?" Streak sighed to acknowledge the sarcasm and gestured toward a group of male warriors standing with the Arbora soldiers who were guarding the entrance to the colony. The greeting hall lay at the base of the massive central spiral of the colony tree's trunk, where a tunnel through to the knothole allowed access to the outside. It was an important defensive point, though the hall itself was meant to impress visitors and was lined with stairways, balconies, and delicate pillars, all carved into intricate shapes by the Arbora artisans. The warriors had obviously done something. As Cerise looked at them, they all shifted to their groundling forms and guiltily avoided her gaze. Streak said, "I know the warriors think it's a joke, but snatching the soldiers' patrol off the outer terrace," and Cerise flicked her spines in annoyance, already contemplating possible punishments. Young male warriors were inclined to be boisterous and weren't exactly experts at applying good judgment. Keeping them from becoming so unruly they disturbed the rest of the court, especially when they were bored, was a constant occupation. And the court had been fairly boring lately, which was exactly how Cerise liked it. He drew breath to ask who the ringleader was, just as Wake slammed in through the entrance passage and dramatically skidded to a halt across the floor. Cerise and Streak both stared at Wake, who stared back, wide-eyed and also guilty, like a fledgling caught stealing bread dough. What is wrong with the warriors today? Cerise wondered. Then she remembered that Wake was on patrol duty this afternoon, charged with guarding the outer perimeter of the colony tree's canopy. Her voice level, Cerise said, "I take it it's not good news." Wake took a deep breath. Her green scales were speckled with raindrops, or possibly spray from the outer waterfall near the entrance, and she had brought with her the strong green scent of the outdoor air. She settled her spines and folded her wings, obviously trying to regain her composure. "Indigo is back. They're just coming into the clearing. Lapis told me to fly ahead and tell you. Therese exchanged a look with Streak, whose brow furrowed in consternation. Reigning queens didn't normally need warnings if the youngest sister queen was returning from a perfectly ordinary trading trip to an ally. Therese hissed to herself. If Indigo had somehow managed to offend the touchy Emerald Twilight Court, the soldiers and guilty warriors had drawn closer to listen, along with the other Arbora who had been passing through the hall. Someone said anxiously, "Is anyone hurt?" "No," Wade's spines flicked uneasily. "No one's hurt." Therese felt her spines lifting, no matter how hard she tried to appear calm. He said, "What did Indigo do?" Wake said, "She has a consort with her," and winced in anticipation. Therese flicked her spines, baffled. They'd been trying to get Indigo to take a consort for the past 5 turns, since her status had been lifted from daughter queen to sister queen, and Emerald Twilight's bloodlines were well known to be excellent. But Indigo had only been there for 7 days, her first long visit, so it must have been a short courtship. But the expression on Wake's face, Streak said, confused, "But that's good news. The consort offered by Emerald Twilight." Her voice trailed off. Therese felt her spines flare and her gut clench. She thought, "She can't have. He can't. He wouldn't. Not Indigo." He said, "He was offered?" Wake shook her head. "Lapis said Indigo stole him." There was a collective gasp from all the Arboran warriors in earshot. That was when Indigo and her warriors entered the hall, coming out of the entrance passage in a jumbled rush of wings and spines. Therese was vaguely conscious of Street turning to the nearest Arbora and saying quietly, "Get the first consort down here, now. Get in now." Indigo was the first and so far only queen Therese had given birth to. The first few clutches had been all male warriors and a few consorts, and Therese had been worried that she might not have any queens at all. And Indigo and her warrior sisters had come, and they were strong and intelligent and sensible when they weren't being rash, silly, and brave to the point of blind idiocy. The warriors had all grown out of it. Indigo almost had, and she'd become Therese's favorite child in the process. They even shared the same colors, both having dark blue scales overlaid with silver. It was really too bad Therese was going to have to kill her. Indigo landed on the floor of the greeting hall, the 5 warriors who had traveled with her settling some distance behind her. All stared at the ground except for Lapis, one of Indigo's warrior clutchmates. She gazed at Therese in mute appeal, either on her behalf or Indigo's, or probably both. Indigo carried the consort, who was in his groundling form. The trepidation in Indigo's expression saved her. Her spines were flat, and she looked like someone who was clearly not certain of her welcome. If she'd seemed proud or defiant, Therese might have lost the tattered shreds of what was left of her self-control. Indigo said, "Therese, and her voice came out a little uneven. She set the consort on his feet and he stepped away from her. She finished awkwardly, "I can explain." The consort was young and pretty in his growling form, but certainly not pretty enough to destroy Ember Shadow's reputation in the Reaches and possibly ignite a war all among their and Emerald Twilight's allies. He was tall, not quite Indigo's shifted height, with dark hair, dark eyes, and skin of a warm dark shade of bronze. The dark-colored pants and shirt he wore were a little mud-stained around the hems, and his only jewelry was a gold armband and a few earrings. His sharp features and lean jawline didn't immediately set off any sparks in Therese's memory, and his scent was unfamiliar. He wasn't from any of the Emerald Twilight bloodlines that she knew well, but none of that mattered. Another queen's scent marker overlaid his own. He had been taken, and not by Indigo. His expression was closed and hard to read, but at least he didn't look terrified. Therese became aware that a large percentage of the court was now in the greeting hall, in groundling form or scaled, either on this level or up on the balconies and overlooks or hanging from the walls. People entered speaking in normal tones and were quickly hushed by those already here. An appalled silence seemed to be spreading all through the enormous colony tree. Therese swallowed back the urge to knock Indigo through the nearest wall and forced herself to focus on the immediate problem. There would be plenty of time to commit filicide later. He said, "How far behind you are they?" Indigo's flattened spines twitched. "Not far," she admitted. Near Therese's elbow, Streak made a noise somewhere between a groan of dismay and an angry hiss. Therese realized her most trusted female warrior, Tranquil, now stood a few paces away. Tranquil was trying to control her expression and her spines, both of which twitched between consternation and disgust. Including Streak in the order, Therese said, "Get the Arbora inside and send out extra patrols, but don't let them provoke a fight." Tranquil nodded and leapt toward the entrance, and other warriors split off from the crowd to follow. Streak turned and bounded toward the stairway down to the lower levels. Indigo said, I'm not really interested in what you think." Therese thought she had done well so far. If only Indigo kept her mouth shut, Therese might be able to get through this without killing anyone, at least anyone in her direct bloodline. Indigo's spines flicked again. If you won't listen to my explanation, did they give him to you? Cerise asked, her voice flat. The consort folded his arms and looked away. Indigo let her breath out. No. Then I don't need to listen to your explanation. At that moment, a black blur dropped out of the upper levels, scattered startled warriors in Arbora, and landed on the floor of the greeting hall in a bristle of angry spines. The dark shape drew itself up and became Cerise's consort, Paragon, first consort of the court. All his spines flared in rage, and when he shook his wings back, the displaced air knocked a couple of warriors sideways. His matte black scales drew the eye of everyone in the big chamber. Any remaining whispers among the Arboran warriors stopped abruptly. Consorts, at least consorts with any spirit, got angry just as much as any Raksura, but they didn't often display their anger to the court, and Paragon was usually reserved. Paragon stared at the young consort, who dropped his gaze and hunched his shoulders. Then Paragon stared at Indigo. It might have been hard for anyone who didn't know him well to read his expression, but to Cerise it clearly said, I raised you from the time you were small enough to fit in my hand, and this is how you repay me. Then he looked at Cerise. Yes, she could read that expression too. He sighed. Paragon pounced, caught the young consort with an arm around his waist, and leapt for the upper levels of the greeting hall. 3 warriors fell off a balcony trying to scramble out of his way, then he disappeared into the nearest doorway. Cerise and Indigo were left staring at each other. Indigo, if possible, looked even more miserable, and Lapis seemed ready to sink through the floor. Indigo said, I haven't touched him, he'll tell you that, and I didn't steal him, he wanted to come with me. It had the ring of truth. Cerise felt the tension inside her heart unclench, just a little. Realized abruptly that most of her anger was sparked by fear. But the fear that Indigo would steal an unwilling consort the Indigo who would steal an unwilling consort was not the Indigo she had given birth to. It was a relief to realize that her Indigo still existed and was in fact standing in front of her. She let out her breath, her spine settling, and the whole court seemed to relax a little. She said, what exactly did... A warrior bounded in from the entrance passage, calling out, Cerise, a strange group of Ariad just entered the clearing. Indigo glanced at Lapis. That was close. Lapis hissed in dismay. If they'd caught us. He swallowed the rest and glanced worriedly at Cerise. We'll discuss it later, Cerise said. Freak had reappeared with a few dozen more Arbora soldiers, all shifted into their scaled forms and ready to defend the entrance passage. It was the only way into the tree that couldn't be completely sealed off, but the twists and turns in it made it into a death trap for attackers. Cerise told the hall in general, no one follows me out. Understood? Go ahead and stop there.
Okay. Thanks, Martha, for reading from your Raksura series. So we're going to go on into the discussion questions. And the first one is actually about your Raksura series. Okay. So in it, the traditional sort of physical gender stereotypes are flipped. So the society is matriarchal. Females are physically more imposing than the males. And the main character Moon is a male, and he's also a consort to the queen. So which is a role that we normally associate with submissive women. Mm-hmm. So did you set out to do this sort of flipping on purpose, and were the results what you had envisioned?
Yeah, I think it was on purpose. When I was first coming up with the book, I was kind of feeling my way through it. And I knew the main character, I wanted him to basically to mostly be about, he had been alone for so long and now he had finally found his place in the world. But I didn't want it to be easy, because usually a lot of stories along those lines end there. And I wanted it to be about the difficulty of trying to fit in. And so I wanted to give him a really complex social structure that he now had to fit into, where his place in it would be important, and something that he would kind of not, he would, kind of be a fish out of water. And the gender roles kind of fell into place the more I developed the species of the Raksura and how their society would work. And it was just fun and interesting for me to put him in that position and have him not only have to navigate this new world, basically this new strange society, but to be in that kind of position in it where he's sort of really the beautiful princess character who's brought in, and I like playing with that idea.
Right. How have your readers reacted to this inversion? What sort of feedback do you get from them?
I'm getting a lot of good feedback about it, and interestingly, I've gotten some comments from male readers that they really like the fact that Moon thought a lot about fatherhood and wanted to be a father, and was interested in having kids, because that's not something they see normally in fantasy novels with male characters.
That's true. So it was mostly positive feedback. Okay, that's great. So okay, when in removing the issue of physical stature and positions of power, do you think that violence against women would be reduced in our world, or what other issues do you think we'd have to overcome before that happens?
I think it would to a certain extent, but I think the biggest issue is the fact that people are just taught to treat women badly in a lot of ways. You're taught, I guess you're taught in a lot of ways to look down on women, even other women. We have the internalized misogyny sometimes, and it's hard to kind of shake that early teaching. The whole, just the expressions, fight like a girl, roll like, everything is. I don't think people quite understand that when you're very young and you're growing up, the effect that has on you. So I think that it's mostly that our society just has been taught to. Misogyny is sort of part of our society.
That's true. But actually, these bits of culture that influences how we look at gender, it's also something that's very apparent in the way the consorts are treated. Did you sort of like pull certain aspects of gender stereotype culture that we see in humans, and sort of like pick and choose certain parts that would apply to consorts?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I wanted to just show that from a completely different perspective.
How did you choose which aspects?
It was kind of a combination of what I wanted for the plot and what I wanted for the characterization and what I wanted for just the story. There wasn't a grand plan or anything that I had at the beginning. It was sort of more of feeling my way along and seeing what fit in.
Okay. All right. Before I continue with the questions, I want to tell the viewers that if you guys want to ask your own questions to Martha, there's a little question box beside the screen. So just put in your questions and I'll read them out. Okay. Go back to our own question. Does it annoy you when people focus on the novelty of the character's sexuality in the Raksura series?
It doesn't really, because I've gotten more comments about people appreciating the fact that it was, the characters are mostly, or the Raksura are bisexual by definition, and that it was different. It was not the typical, gender binary that you're so used to seeing. The comments I've had have all been really appreciative of it.
Okay, because almost every review I read did mentioned about the sexuality in the Raksura world.
Yeah, and I think that's just because people are kind of really looking for those types of books that not necessarily, maybe not reflecting their own experience, but reflecting different experiences, and in some cases reflecting their experience as bisexuals or non-binary people, and and they're a bit more, and it's just something that people are looking for. So I think that's why people mention it.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that they have to find it in characters that are not even human.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go with this, with creating a whole new species? Okay, I'm confused.
I've been writing another book where Moon and the Raksura were kind of minor characters, and I was that most of the characters were going to be human, and the writing was kind of going okay, and I was developing Moon's backstory, and that just became a lot more interesting than the characters that were supposed to be my main characters. And so I thought, well, why don't I just go with this and try to explore it more? And it worked out.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, through your books, you've created worlds that provide readers, especially women, with representation that they may not otherwise have seen in the majority of science fiction and fantasy books. Do your characters like Malachite and Jade or Madeline have real life inspirations?
Not really, not one single inspiration. What I tend to do is just kind of gather bits and pieces of different people's personalities that impress me, and then that kind of gets generated into the character. So there's not really one person. Sometimes for the look of a character, I'll like focus on an actor or something like that. But most of the time, the personality comes from a bunch of different people.
Do you have like a folder for each character where you put references or?
No, I wish I did. I've started, there's a wiki on my website where I'm keeping a lot of the information and people can go in and look at it. But I don't do that. I tend to kind of just create on the fly, and I'll make little notes and another Word file for myself, but that's it.
Okay. I'm especially impressed with Malachite. She's a badass character, but in a lot of ways, people would look at her and think she's such a cold woman and things. Yeah, she wouldn't normally be someone that you would look up to in terms of gender. But in the Raksura series, she's pretty much the alpha female.
Yeah.
And is that something that you'd like to see more of in writing or in any sort of representation that people could emphasize?
I would like to. I would like to see female characters who are imposing and scary in the way that she is. And I would like to. That's kind of one reason why I created her. It's like I wanted somebody to be, that badass female character. And in her case, it's like, yeah, she projects a cold image, but it's mostly her trying to control her emotion, and I think that becomes more apparent the more you see her. Like when the first time she sees Moon, she can't confront Moon because he looks too much like his father, basically, and she has to leave. And so she has those moments. And that continues. She's also in the Edge of Worlds, and she's going to be in the Harbors of the Sun, the next book that's coming out.
Right. Why do you think that there's so few characters like Malachite?
I don't know. I think it's just that, especially in movies, you see female characters. The strong female character is such a not really a stereotype, but a template where she can only react in certain ways, and she has to be very sexual or very sexy, and I think that kind of prevents a lot of character development for female characters. Also, you have the idea that female characters have to be likable, and characters like Malachite aren't particularly likable. You would think, but she is. I get a lot of feedback from readers that she's one of their favorite characters. So.
What to you is a strong female character?
I think there's a whole variety of them. You can have people who are under tremendous pressure, who are just, who are not particularly heroes or not, physically capable, but they're under tremendous pressure, and they're able to survive and accomplish things, and that's a strong person, a strong woman. So I think it's anybody who can persevere in a lot of ways.
So more of, I suppose, like character strength, moral strength.
Moral strength, yeah, and just survival. One of my favorite shows is How to Get Away with Murder, and I love Viola Davis on there, and it's just like, and the more they make her character so complex and so layered, and she makes mistakes, but she's trying to save people, and it's just such a great portrayal, and it's like that's one of my ideal images of a strong female character.
We have a question from one of the viewers. Singpith asks, one of the reasons I've loved your books is the world feels so truly populated by alien cultures. How do you come up with so many distinct races and cultures for a story?
You just have to kind of push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When I was first writing the books, first writing the Cloud Roads, I would have them like when Moon and Jade are traveling and they get to the Turning City. Originally, that was just a little camp, and I thought, well, that's boring. Let's make it a city. And then it just sort of, and I just kept pushing myself, and I kind of developed a thing where I would come up with something and then say, well, how can I make this better? How can I make this more interesting to me? And then, it's more, if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to the reader. And I just you have to just push yourself. And also, I look at a lot of different things. I look at, especially for inspiration about alien beings. Sea life is really good. It's looking at different strange types of sea life, especially the I forget now what they're called, but the ones that live below the light level. You can see a lot of really neat pictures and images from there, and just kind of give yourself different ideas and think about, okay, this particular organism survives in this way. What if it was intelligent? What would it do? You just kind of have to extrapolate like that.
Do you have a writing a way that you write? Like, for example, when you start a book, what do you do?
Usually, it's kind of like when I do world building. For me, it's like the character and the world are so intertwined. I kind of have to come up with them both at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about what kind of person do I want to write about? What kind of person? What would the world have to be like to develop the person in that way? And all those things kind of come together, and I try to bring them together like that.
Okay, sort of like an organic thing going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Going back to the conversation about representation of women in writing, especially science fiction, fantasy. What do you think needs to be done so that women and girls can see more characters with agency in the pages that they read?
I don't know. I think it's just the more portrayals you read, I think the more characters that are like that are out there. I think it does encourage younger writers to try to emulate that. When I was growing up in the 70s, it was very, very difficult to find. Back then, they didn't have young adult as a category. You just had basically children's books, and then you went to adult. And it was very difficult to find children's books with girl main characters who were going on adventures. Mostly what you would get was a group of boys going on adventures, and there might be a girl who'd be kind of the babysitter, or basically the load, the person they had to have to drag with them for whatever reason, and the antagonist who's trying to stop them. And I really had to go into more adult science fiction and fantasy that was a bit too old for me at the time to find, women main characters. So I think it's changed quite a lot now because it's so much easier, especially with YA as a young adult as a category. It's so much easier to find adventures centered around female characters. So I think that does help a lot, and hopefully we'll just see more and more of that, as the years go by.
Right. Are there any writers that you yourself would like to talk about, like female writers?
I love N.K. Jemison's books. I just finished The Obelisk Gate, and that was incredible. I'm reading Force Her to the Crown by, I think it's
Zen.
Yeah. And I love that. That's really good. I'm about midway through it. It's really good so far. And I love Sharon Lord wrote The Best of All Possible Worlds. I think that's going to become one of my favorite books. Kate Elliott, especially the Court of Fives and The Poison Blade. I just finished reading it not too long ago. That's a great series. Karen Shin, her it's the Elemental series. Really been enjoying that one. Kathleen Chaney, Kathleen Chaney's just new book was called Dreaming Death. It's kind of a fantasy mystery in a sort of historical fantasy created world. That was really good. That's what I've been reading so far. And then Aliette de Bodard. And her The House of Shattered Wings. But yeah, I've been reading a lot of stuff lately. Also, Claudia Shanti Wilson, The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps. That's one of my new favorites.
That's a pretty extensive list.
Yeah. I've been trying to do a lot of reading. That's like my main. I don't really have any other hobbies that aren't related to reading or writing. So basically, that's what I do.
Your training as an anthropologist, how has it informed the way that you write about gender relationships?
I don't know if it was gender. It's informed my writing about gender relationships, but it definitely has about cultures and the way cultures work together and alone, and just how to develop cities and the landscape and all things like that. It was very helpful to that.
That's true. So when you're exploring things like non-traditional gender dynamics, do you find it easier to do in non-human second worlds or in your worlds that do have humans in it?
I did it a bit in the Follow Rien trilogy, but I think I've been kind of working up to it throughout my books, for quite a while. And I think the Raksura are kind of the culmination of a lot of different thinking I've done on it over the years. So I think it was easier with an alien race because it was easier to give them this completely different society, and I think it was easier for some readers to accept that in an alien species, basically, as opposed to if they were human. And there's certain things about their society and that would not work with the human species. It would be the way that there's certainly, it just would be kind of, for humans to do that, it would just be more, I think it would be more oppressive. But when, because of their physicality and because of their changes, it's not, it's like, it's their biology is pushing them towards is determining this, as opposed to humans where that's not that's not something that would be good for us, I think.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult to translate into a human sort of relationship.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're gonna ask a few questions about gender violence and things like that.
Okay.
So, and I also like to remind viewers, if you guys have any other questions, just put it in the little question box beside the screen, and I'll read it out to Martha. All right. So, in your opinion, how can authors like yourself best support efforts to kick off social change to end violence against women?
I guess just by talking about it. I wish I felt like I had more influence to do anything about it, but I do feel helpless about it a lot of the time. You see things happen to people online and just in your everyday life, and you just feel like there's just nothing to be done. But talk about it
and write about it, I guess.
Write about it,
and, but as an author, you do create discussion about it, and you do create opportunities for people to see other worlds.
Yeah, I mean, being able to create a world like with the Raksura, where it's just not something that happens. You notice they don't have a lot of that kind of. They don't have a lot of kind of problems. It's not gender directed.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's kind of nice to create those worlds and maybe give people a little refuge.
Yeah,
where they don't have to think about it, or they know it's not going to happen.
That's true. Have you or anyone close to you ever experienced gender-based violence, and how did it affect you?
I was stalked when I was in college, and it sort of damaged my ability to trust for quite a long time. Probably still does. And, it's something like that just affects you on so many different levels. And when back that time, I mean, I don't think I knew any girls in college, even people I just met casually, that once you started talking about it, they all had some sort of story about being stalked or having something happen to them. It was just so common. And I remember sitting around one night with my roommate, and it was the first episode of The Equalizer, the TV show. And in the first episode, one of the things he does is a woman comes to him for help because a guy is stalking her and harassing her. And he chases a guy in his car and pins him against a wall and beats him up and tells him to stop. And we were just sitting there just shocked, because we had never seen anything in the media that actually said, stalking, the stalker's fault. It's not your fault. It's always like, he didn't, as my roommate was saying, he didn't just talk to him and ask him to stop. He didn't say, why are you doing it? He didn't argue with him. He just said, stop it or I'll kill you. And it was such a revelation to us, because we had never seen anything like that. And it's like you knew it wasn't your fault. But having, something in the media confirm that it's not your fault, it's this person who's a criminal, and he won't leave this woman alone, so this guy's going to make him leave her alone. So, yeah, it was just a big thing. But that was, that's probably my most, my biggest experience with it.
Right. Do you think the way we look at things like stalking and harassment has changed?
Yes, it has, and that's a huge relief to me. I mean, there's still problems. I mean, you still see cases where, in the news where someone dies or a woman dies or is hurt or something because people would not believe her that this was going on or would not treat it seriously. But I think that it's so much better than what it used to be, even in like the 80s and early 90s. It was just a huge difference.
That is true. We have a question from Regina. Geek culture has been criticized as being too male-dominated despite a rising number of prominent female authors. What do you think needs to be done to make geek culture more welcoming for women?
Yeah, it's a huge problem in gaming, I know. It's always seemed really weird to me, because when I first started going to conventions, I was in college and there was a science fiction and fantasy group on campus, and we ran conventions, and I worked, our convention was AggieCon, and I was a chairman one year and everything. And most of the people in the group, so many people in the group who were officers and did a lot of work were women. And it's been that way for me in fandom so much, as so many of the people, the conventions I go to here, you'll look around and it's probably, 50 to 60% women most of the time. And I was also involved with media fandom, which is very heavily female. So it's just weird to see, and people saying nowadays that, oh, well, this is a man's thing and you should stay out of it, because it was just not, it was never that way for me when I was, when I was in fandom. So it's really strange, and I wonder, because it's just my subjective view. So it's like, was it different in other places? So it's very strange, and it's especially strange in media, since women were such a big part of keeping Star Trek on the air when it first came out, and the fan we're organizing the fan groups and everything. So I don't know what they're going to have to do. I don't know how this perception can change. I know there's a lot of people, especially in gaming, working towards it. and working towards more acceptance of people of color in gaming, and more representation. And you know, it just I don't know. I wish I knew the solution to that. It just seems such a terrible thing to have this thing that you love and to feel like you somehow don't belong, you know, in that group.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what role do you think men can play in stopping violence against women? Do you have a male role model that comes to mind?
I think a huge role, like Patrick Stewart, is a big advocate of men speaking out. And, you know, you see so many things that talk about it, that's asking men that if they see it, you know, if they see a friend of theirs, you know, doing something, saying something, to just like stop and ask them to stop doing it, ask them to think about what they're doing, you know, something like that. I think men have a huge role to play.
Do you have anyone in mind, like your dad or someone?
I've been very lucky in the men I've been friends with in fandom, with my husband and our other friends. So I feel like it's just been pure luck that I've been around them, that I felt safe with in those spaces.
That's great, actually, because you're involved in a lot of conventions, aren't you? Like,
Yeah.
since way back. Do you think things have changed? Like,
I don't know. To me, it does feel like things have gotten worse in some ways, and I don't know if that's just because of conventions getting more popular. But I knew that's always been a problem. You've always had people who came into convention spaces to try to take advantage of women and young women, and anybody that was, you know, unprotected, alone, whatever. There's always been predators in those spaces. So I'm not sure if my feeling that things have become worse is just the fact that you hear so much more about it now. Before then, there was no internet. You know, back in the 80s, there was no internet for people to get on and warn people about these situations, and now there is. So it's that perception that there's just more of it.
yeah, it's true. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our last question, and that is about the Read for Pixels campaign. You've been a really incredible supporter for our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women work as a whole. Would you like to tell us why do you support the cause to end violence against women?
Because it's something that's going to lift up everybody. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you know, fighting misogyny is like fighting racism. It's just it's going to make the world better for everybody, and it's something everybody should think about.
That's true. Is that something that you try to do in your work?
I try. Again, I wish I you know, I was better at it. I wish I could do more. You know, I feel like my efforts are, you know, been like not inadequate, but you know, I feel like I could somehow push to do more if I knew better what to do, basically. But I do feel it's something that I should work on more. That a lot of people should think about more and work on more.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so thank you so much, Martha, for answering our questions. This brings us to the end of our time with Martha Wells. And thanks for joining us today and showing your support in ending violence against women. Would you like to say bye to your fans, the donors, and make any announcements?
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity. I do have the last Raksura book. It's The Harbors of the Sun, and that's coming out. It should be next July. It's available for pre-order in hardcover now. The ebook and audiobook will be later. The Edge of Worlds is out now in hardcover, ebook, and audiobook, and its paperback will be coming out in April, I believe. So next April.
Okay, so
Raksura
fans. Right. All right. Thank you so much, Martha. Raksura fans have a lot to look forward to.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to me. All right. One second. Okay, so everyone, as mentioned earlier, Martha has donated 3 goodie bundles comprising a signed and personalized first edition hardcover of her latest novel, The Edge of Worlds, plus a custom blended tea called Indigo Cloud to go with it. And they've all already been snatched up. But there are still plenty more wonderful treats and rewards from authors and publishers for donors ranging from book bundles to Skype calls. So you can donate to get these goodies on Indiegogo at is.gd slash r4p Indiegogo 2016. And if you want to learn more about Read for Pixels, go to is.gd slash read for pixels. And to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, visit the Pixel Project's website at www.thepixelproject.net. And once again, to find out more about the celebrity male role model Pixel Reveal campaign, please visit reveal.thepixelproject.net to learn more about it, and please do donate generously to help us reveal pixels and raise the $1 million for the cause. So thanks everyone, and have a good day or good night wherever you are in the world.